Let's look at this passage now. India has many crimes but no criminals. That one line is only a slight exaggeration of the outcome so far in the 2G case and other cases against politicians. In 2012, the Supreme Court held in public interest suit that the issue of 122 telecom 2G licenses in 2008 was arbitrary and unconstitutional, that telecom minister Raja virtually gifted away natural resources, and that Raja's first come first served procedure was grossly distorted to favor a few. The Supreme Court cancelled all 122 licenses and levied stiff fines totaling rupees 17 crore on 7 licensees. But now the lower CBI court, headed by Justice Saini, has held that there was no crime at all and acquitted all 17 cases. All 17 accused. The evidence before the two courts was much the same, yet the verdicts are poles apart. What sort of justice system do we have? So this is a rhetorical question. The author is bringing into question the kind of justice system that we have, okay? Because there was something said by Supreme Court and the lower court actually went against it. Justice Saini has flayed the shoddiness of the CBI investigation, the public prosecutor, and implicitly the Supreme Court judgment. His own verdict has been flayed as shoddy by legal experts like Prashant Bhushan. So much for the equality of our police judicial system, which rarely catches and convicts influential persons beyond all appeals. So the author is bringing into question the police judicial system with respect to influential people. When law breaking carries so little risk, no wonder corruption is rife. The Congress and DNK are celebrating Saini's verdict as proof of their innocence, claiming they have been victims of a smear campaign by the BJP and media. Sorry, but this case is going to be appealed in the High Court and later the Supreme Court. Will the Supreme Court ultimately agree with Justice Saini that there was no crime, or reiterate its original finding that a massive crime occurred? I rate the chances of Supreme Court ultimately convicting Raja and others as over 80%. So the author is convinced that the Supreme Court will overrule what the lower court had said. Many political analysts say that the Saini verdict opens the way for BJP-DMK alliance in Tamil Nadu. Modi should publicly rule out that immediately. It will seriously tarnish his Mr. Clean image. Voters know how shoddy and incompetent the police judicial system is and will certainly not conclude on the basis of a single verdict that the Congress is an uncorrupt victim rather than a corrupt perpetrator. Modi should back the original Supreme Court verdict and fight to the finish. Did the Comptroller and Auditor General, CAG, exaggerate grossly in claiming that the Exchequer lost rupees 176 lakh crore by not auctioning 2G spectrum? Yes, indeed. The CAG used a benchmark the bids for artificially scarce 3G spectrum. The actual prices obtained when 2G spectrum was auctioned were far lower. Besides, as former RBI Governor Subba Rao justified, every government has to make a trade-off between welfare maximization and revenue maximization. He said the relatively low spectrum rate fixed by Raja was a revenue sacrifice to keep telecom prices, not a revenue loss. Yet the key issue is not how much revenue was lost, but whether the procedure was fair and uncorrupt. The Supreme Court earlier said no. Justice Saini now says yes. The Supreme Court, however, will have the last word. Many courts the world over have taken the stand to prove corruption. A quid pro quo must be established between money paid and favor granted. Such evidence is hard to find. In this case, investigative agencies traced a flow of money from Swan Telecom to Kalaignar TV owned by DNK leader Kanimozhi through several intermediaries and said this represented a bribe. But Justice Saini said there was no crime and hence no flow of money could be criminal. I greatly doubt that this will be upheld by higher courts on appeal. So the author is again saying that this will not probably be upheld, okay? Forget this case. Why push it all for reform? All political parties seem to prefer a weak system. Why? Which convicts very few over a strong system that would convict members of every party. Sadly, every party has skeletons in its cupboard, right? Remember the Jain Hawala case where the Jain diaries showed payouts to politicians of all parties? The government tried to mothball the case with no objections from the opposition. But following a public interest suit, An enraged Supreme Court ordered a CBI investigation. Alas, all the accused politicians were exonerated. Exonerated as in let go, free from blame. The amicus curiae is in that case, Anil Diwan, said that a deliberately weak prosecution had thwarted convictions. Conspiracy theorists speculate that something similar may have happened in the 2G case. Our police justice system needs a complete overhaul. Right now, it yields neither speed nor justice, just shoddiness. That is a scam much bigger than the 2G scam. So the author is bringing into question the police justice system and is against what the lower court going against the Supreme Court, and is convinced that the Supreme Court will uphold its decision. The first question says, discernment of judicial interpretation pertaining to the 2G spectrum allocation case. Okay, what about it? Judicial verdicts across different echelons have manifested a remarkable consistency in their adjudications concerning the case. In fact, there is no consistency. So I can eliminate A. The adjudication by the lower judiciary intimates a potential misapprehension or inadvertent oversight regarding the multifaceted intricacies of the case's framework. Yes. Potential misapprehension, inadvertent oversight. That's true. And that's the adjudication by the lower judiciary intimates, right? B looks good. C says the decree pronounced by the Supreme Court garnered universal consensus, thereby remaining unchallenged. We know it was challenged. It was challenged by the lower court itself. D says all stakeholders within the ambit of the 2G spectrum case expressed unanimous consentment with the judicial determinations proffered. We can't say that. E says the Supreme Court's original verdict was based solely on political motivations rather than legal principles. We say Supreme Court's original verdict was not based on political motivations. They actually convicted the politicians, right? So option B is your best answer. Question 2 says prognostication regarding Supreme Court's stance on lower court's acquittal in the 2G spectrum case. Well, if you remember, this is what the author has to say. The author strongly believes that this would not, the Supreme Court would overhaul. A says implausible as the Supreme Court conventionally sustains the verdicts issued by subordinate judiciary bodies. No, it does not sustain the verdicts issued by subordinate judiciary bodies. That's what the author is saying. Supreme Court ultimately convicting Raja. Right? B says moderately probable in light of political influences potentially swaying judicial decisions. If they were being swayed, the author would not have such strong belief in the Supreme Court. C says highly probable, mirroring the author's conviction in the robustness of the Supreme Court's initial judgment. That's what the author is saying here, right here. As over 80%. C looks good. D says ambiguous given the inherently unpredictable nature of jurisprudential deliberation. That's not what the author is saying. The author is saying it's highly likely that the Supreme Court will uphold its decision, right? E says unlikely due to the Supreme Court's limited jurisdiction over lower court decisions. Of course, we know Supreme Court does not have limited jurisdiction over lower court's decision. Evaluation of the Indian police judicial system inferred from the passage. Okay, of course, this is what the passage is all about. It is lauded for its efficacy and success in adjudicating cases involving influential figures. Is it being praised? Also, it says adjudicating cases involve influential figures. They're not able to do so when the influential figures are involved. B says it is critiqued for its lack of thoroughness and efficiency, manifesting a consistent failure to convict influential individuals. That's what the whole idea of the passage is, right? Politicians and influential individuals tend to get away. So B looks good. C says it is overly preoccupied with reformative endeavors, resulting in undue procedural delays. We don't know whether they're involved in reformative endeavors or not. D says it is criticized for precipitately convicting individuals propelled by an excessive zeal for reform. Criticized for precipitately convicting? See, it is not convicting individuals. propelled by an excessive zeal for reform. There is no reform. In fact, it is not convicting individuals who are influential. That's the main contention. He says it is commended for maintaining a high standard of impartiality and accuracy in legal proceedings. Indian police judicial system is not commended for maintaining a high standard. In fact, it is criticized, right? Option B, lack of thoroughness, failure to convict influential individuals. Prospective implications of judicial discrepancies on the public's confidence in the legal system. Of course, it will be shaken. You can say that. Augmentation of public trust attributed to the perceived diligence in legal adjudication process. Augmentation is increased. No, but people will not trust them because they're not convicting influential people. B says erosion of public trust. Yes, stemming from visible judicial inconsistencies and perceived miscarriage of justice. Absolutely on point. C says neutral impact on public sentiment owing to widespread apathy towards the complexities of legal proceedings. That's not true. The public is not apathetic towards complexities of legal proceedings. In fact, the public are involved, D says enhancement of the legal framework spurred by increased public awareness and demands for systemic reform. Enhancement of the legal framework? No. Public awareness, yes, but there is no enhancement of legal framework. Strengthening of the judiciary's reputation due to increased transparency in legal processes. Quite the contrary. There is no transparency in legal processes, right? So, judiciary's reputation will not strengthen. Option B is your best answer.